Welcome friends to another 40k video. Today we examine a Xenos race called the Slaugth. But to know their role, first we must look at the Amanthine Syndicate. Look at it from the outside. It's made up of trader captains, void clans, merchants. It looks quite innocent, but that belies what lies inside. It's been involved in smuggling operations of Xenos artifacts, trading outside bounds of the Imperium, and backing trade wars that favour its own advantage. Further, pirate attacks have happened under its watch, though not officially. People have been massacred on outposts where those there are isolated, and there have been many other atrocities. They have even come under the eye of the Inquisition. And so now we come back to the Slaugth. They are the power behind the Syndicate. As a race, they are without age, and this has given them the ability to be very, very patient with their plans and schemes. They can be of a great, great detail level, so much so that the human mind can perhaps not comprehend them. There's a motivation behind the Slaugth. They have a hunger, an addictive hunger, and to feed this, they have an objective. There's a sector, the Calixis sector. Their want is to see it unravel in civil war, to create anarchy and terror there, so that they might feed on the warring masses of mankind, and in doing it in this sort of way, silently, they will meet little opposition. And so, they have infiltrated the Amanthine Syndicate very early on in its lifespan, when it was a fledgling trade cartel. It's a pawn in a much bigger game that, for humanity, it may take many generations of our lives for this plan to fully come into operation. Over their time working with humanity, they've come to understand this very well. Their weapons are human greed and desire, and their plan is to effectively destroy humanity by giving it what it actually wants: wealth, power, weapons, drugs, forbidden trinkets, and then watch as humanity tears itself apart as a consequence of those gifts. They also use these gifts to get higher into criminal underworlds, economic structures of this Calixis sector, even going as high as the nobility and government. Such parts as the ecclesiarchy, Munitorum and the Administratum will be very advantageous targets for them, and if their plan comes actually to fruition, they will make their move, and their operations, this infiltration, will have eaten everything away from within, making everything compromised, and the sector will collapse in on itself, and then the Slaugth will have their way, and the survivors will doubtlessly envy the dead. Now, I've mentioned the Slaugth a few times. What do they actually look like? We can take a description from the book Alfarius, Head of the Hydra, which I'll go into now. One of the Maggot men was here. It was tall, closer to 3 meters than 2, with 2 arms and what appeared to be 2 legs beneath its dark hooded robe, but any similarities it might bear to humanity vanished once you saw its exposed flesh, its hands, in one of which it clutched a corroded scepter. Its hands were both masses of maggots, and where the face of a human would be was simply a blank mass of writhing worms. It was repulsive to the sight of any that looked upon it. The book Dark Heresy, Disciples of the Gods, has a little bit of trivia that I like. It says that the Slaugth are looked upon by many as a nightmarish myth, void-born tales or the dark fancy of some mad rogue trader. We're told they also have other names. I mentioned Maggot men. They're also called Dream Eaters or the Carrion Lords. Now, as I mentioned, the Inquisition have been looking into them. They know the threat that they are there. But being the Inquisition, they have suppressed the knowledge to protect, of course, the delicate minds of the humans within the Imperium. Something else they know is the motivation behind their actions I touched upon earlier. They want the flesh of dead intelligence, the flesh of dead beings above all others, and this saviour, our cranial matter. It seems to give them an almost narcotic effect, an addictive pleasure that they cannot fill. Some say that the Maggot men can consume the memories and knowledge of their victims, doing things this way, but that's only a tale at this point. Their interference, we'll call it, with humanity goes way back, perhaps as far back as the Age of Strife. They all follow a pattern which the Dark Heresy book lays out for us. Black, tenebrous vessels slipping into Imperial space to wreak havoc, isolated outposts, or shipping attacked without warning by a vastly superior and horrific foe, bodies left mutilated or missing altogether, and vile technologies and blasphemous creations traded to depraved human renegades. in return for slaves and captives. Some rogue traders believe that the home system of the Slaugth lies far out into the trailing halo stars beyond the Imperium's borders. Now there are sealed inquisitional archives that speculate that several frontier worlds in the Segmentum Obscurus have been destabilised and tipped into civil war by the actions of the Slaugth, so that they can feed. But these have been relatively rare occurrences in the overall life of the Imperium. The Slaugth's influence has been mercifully few, and it notes that the creatures themselves are very hard to slay. The Holy Ordos remains unaware of the Slaugth's involvement with the Amanthine Syndicate and the threat it represents, although encounters with the Slaugth in the Calixus sector have been spiking dramatically in the last several years. Now there's a lot of reasons that lie behind this. The ability of the Slaugth to puppet other people and infiltrate other organisations, and how far the threads of their network have spread. At the time, the Inquisition itself, its knowledge, they only know about raids and abductions happening. They don't know the Slaugth is behind this, so its true nature is yet to be uncovered. However, there's one branch of the Inquisition that knows a little, not about the Slaugth, but about the Syndicate that hides it and covers it. This is the Ordo Xenos. It's believed a faction within the Syndicate is under suspicion. They've been trafficking Xenos artifacts and have deep links with renegades and pirates in the Hazeroth Abyss region. Because of this, several Inquisitors have begun looking at certain individuals. There are no conclusive results for them yet, though several smuggling rings and individual xeno-heretics have been prosecuted. So outside of their labyrinthian planning, what makes the Slaugth deadly as individuals? They can stretch and reform their body mass, and it does this with an obscene, boneless fluidity. They are also impervious to age, poison, diseases, and all but the most extreme types of injury. And if you were to look into their minds, you would see that they are cold, savage, and alien, with a deep, monstrous hunger, always there pushing them. And their science matches the creatures themselves. It melds organic and inorganic together. They can create strange techno-organic construct creatures of many varieties that do their will. The weapons appear to be some sort of warp craft, but this is because they are highly advanced and strange to others. This has led to people thinking of them as demons. There are infiltrators amongst the Slaugth who can disguise themselves, but there are also principals who are also dangerous. They can increase the reach of their body by stretching it out to catch you unawares. They also can exude a necrotic fluid. This comes from their very body's tissues. It contains flesh-eating bacteria and molecular acids that will liquefy flesh and burn through metal. Now, if a Slaugth is able to consume the brains, they can get some of the memories, knowledge and experiences of that person. But they are very jumbled and not ordered, so it's hard for them to get what they want out of it every time. But the fresher the brains, the better for this purpose. Though they themselves prefer rotting brain, they may get important information from that human if they can take a little bite of something fresher. And these memories are not retained, they can disappear after a few weeks. Now we'll come to these Slaugth constructs we mentioned a little earlier. The roles these constructs fulfill for the Slaugth are to act as menial labourers, guards, spies, or observers. Their appearance is called columns of mottled, fungal-looking flesh shot through with pulsing veins and lattices of metal threadwork and crystalline studs. And the Dark Heresy book tells us their heads are no more than clusters of waving frond-like sensory growths, and skeletal pincer limbs erupt from their body mass as needed to attack. Another of their abilities is that they can take any sort of shape that their master desires. So for example, they might be used for heavy labour, whereas a observer design might mean that the construct would be equipped with a shroud cloak and be given enhanced sensors to watch. And on that note, I'll end today's video on the Xenos race, the Slaugth. Are there any other Xenos races you'd like me to look at? Or any areas of 40k in general? I'm up for ideas. I'll definitely look into them. So make a suggestion, or if you've got a point to make that as well. And remember, friends, if you're applying for a job and you see it's for the Amanthine Syndicate, run in the other direction.